Everyone, I'm very happy that you're joining us today because we're going to talk about some more Chinese phrases. We're going to talk about the sentence structure. We're going to talk about the key words, and we're also going to think about, what other types of phrases could you make using these structures. Now, I have a few announcements to make about this, actually. Let me go ahead and make myself a little bigger here for this part. I have a few announcements to make about this part, which is that it is our intention, and we will see if we can manage to pull this off, but the team is now kind of focused in on getting a daily live stream Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. U.S. Central, so 2 p.m. Eastern. This is the time that is most convenient for me, and I was trying different times to see what I could pull off in terms of trying to fit it into my day. But the problem was that without being able to get some consistency with it, we're not able to tell how well it's going, right? We can't get enough consistency to know, people kept saying oh, I didn't know it was going to happen at this time. So I was like, yeah, well, fair enough. And so if it's going to happen at a consistent time every day, it has to be a time that will work with the many things that I have to do with Mandarin Blueprint, including making new materials and all of that. So here is the general plan. Monday will be a Henza movie method demonstration. Tuesday will be learning words character by character. Wednesday will be onboarding for anybody who has joined one of the Mandarin Blueprint courses. Thursday will be beginner phrases from the Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter. And Friday will be phrases from a situation in Chinese called, basically coming from our course, the Phrase Vault, which is still not out yet, but it's going to be out soon. So the plan is for me to get ahead on these presentations so that we can have them 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. U.S. Central Time. And, I know that other times of the day can probably work better for certain people in certain areas, and I get it. But unfortunately, it's just this is the time that's going to have to work. And maybe for some of you, that's very fortunate. So it depends on where you are in the world, I suppose. If you're in Australia, you're probably disappointed. But if you're in the U.S. or Europe, there should be some time to watch this. So hope that you guys don't mind. And of course, you can always watch the replay. So hopefully with that consistency of it always being at the same time every day and having the same plan each week where we're going to, I'm going to expand upon it each time. I'm not just going to keep doing the same presentation 5 days a week, but those 5 I'll do for a month. And then the onboarding will always stay the same on Wednesday, but the other 4, whichever one is the least interesting to you guys, I'll replace it with something else. Cause we have way more than 4 ideas for a live stream, but if you try to do all of them, then you just end up with too much variation. So essentially what I've been doing up until now is having a variation between, I've been basically doing not only different topics, but also different times of day. And I've been rushing to try to get it done at the last minute. Today was such a busy day that I was like, okay, I want to get this presentation done. And, here I am getting later and later in the day. By having it planned out, I'll be able to get ahead on some of this stuff. And I plan on over this weekend planning out all the presentations for the upcoming week. And then during the week, continuing to get ahead. And then as I do it, we're actually bringing on a couple more Chinese assistants. I'll teach them how I do it, and then they can help me get these out faster and faster. And so, yeah, we should have some really good stuff going very soon. And in the meantime, let me take a second to just talk to you guys. You've been bringing up a few things in the chat. So before I get into the actual presentation, let's just talk about some of the stuff you guys have been bringing up in the chat. And Ren, right off the bat, said too much information on social media about Mandarin. And I agree. So, as a company that has a course that teaches Mandarin, of course, there's a ton of stuff out there about learning Mandarin, and you have to put something out. If you're a company, you have to provide some value to folks, right? But there is the problem of, if you're going to do any kind of free content, it's very hard to have it systemized and create a mechanism of delivery, right? So we have YouTube, and sure, a YouTube video is great, and we just came out with a YouTube video the other day called it was basically the 99 phrases that we would learn if we were starting Chinese from scratch. And the video itself is a good way to learn stuff, but if you really want to get good, you're going to need to have a system that is step by step and it's linear, and you can just say, okay, not only am I learning something, but I'm ensuring that I remember it, and I'm seeing how it builds into other stuff. So just doing social media, it's not that it's impossible, it's just, it's all over the place, right? Even the stuff I'm going to talk about today, it's interesting and you'll pick up some stuff about Chinese, but it's not structured. And so if you really want structure, that's what we built with Mandarin Blueprint. You know, one of the things interesting about Mandarin Blueprint compared to many of the other Mandarin learning social media platforms or YouTube channels or whatever is that we're a bunch of dorks and we built our product first, which is like every person who teaches about business and selling stuff online will tell you, you know, just start the business, get things going, have good marketing, and like, you know, make your product based on customer feedback and don't worry so much about the product. But we didn't know any of that when we first started off. We were just like, let's just make this really awesome product. And so what we did was we built out this whole curriculum for learning Chinese. And then we were like, right, so now how do we sell this online? And then we're like, maybe we'll have a YouTube channel. So many YouTubers start off being a, you know, they have an aspiration to be a YouTuber, and then they become big, and then they go, well, maybe I'll sell a course now. We're the opposite. We had this course, and we were like, okay, how do we sell this? Let's make a YouTube channel. So in a sense, what we've been trying to do with our YouTube channel is just point people to the fact that, like, hey, if you're looking for structure, if you're looking for one place where it's all just together, you know, check out what we built. So that's the blueprint. That's in the description below. But of course, it's a massive curriculum. So if you just want to try it out, you can take the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge, which is linked below, mandarinbp.com/challenge. Cool. So Ron says, I need to download Phil's brain to my head. Oh, you wouldn't want to do that. My biggest struggle so far learning Chinese has been not translating in my head or speaking Chinese using the English way, so all my sentences don't make sense. Yeah, I am. Oh, hang on a second. Sorry. I think I locked my wife out. Hey.
Not working for some reason.
Okay. I'm streaming at the moment. That's okay. All right. Sorry, where was I? So, yeah, so that dude says, my biggest struggle so far learning Chinese has been not translating in my head. And I do get this, of course. At the beginning, you're like, well, how do I think of something to say without reference to English? Because English is the only language I know, and it's the only way I can effectively communicate as an adult. And so when you're learning a new language, you kind of go back to feeling like a kid again, just not understanding loads of stuff. And, you know, it's just, it's very difficult to deal with that emotion, right? And so what happens is you need to continue to recognize that the only way out is through. And what I mean by that is that the only way to get to a point where you're thinking in Chinese is to get more comprehensible input. The more comprehensible input you get, the more it'll become natural. So it took me so long to understand this because I was trying to study my way to fluency and it wasn't working. So I was like, well, let me just read about these grammar points, and if I read about all the grammar points, if I go to Chinese Grammar Wiki, and I like Chinese Grammar Wiki, don't get me wrong, but if I just go through Chinese Grammar Wiki and just read all of it, then I'll know. And it didn't work because understanding how grammar is structured in the language is facts about the language. It's not the language itself. So it's like it's the map, not the territory. The only way to get the grammar to actually work in your brain is to have seen the patterns enough times and understood them so that when you are faced with a problem, your brain rises to the occasion. When you go to speak, when I see one of your questions come up here and I go to answer it, the only way that I can possibly answer it is having understood things before in the past in English and also like intellectually about pedagogy and stuff. But the same thing is true of Chinese. So if a question comes up in Chinese, you need to see the question and see if your brain rises to the occasion. And once I realized that the way to get my brain to rise to the occasion is to get as many understandable messages per minute as possible, UMPMs, that was the game changer for me. That's when I suddenly started to realize, like, okay, I need to get all sorts of sentences and paragraphs and stories into my head. And then, of course, with Chinese, the problem is, fine, so you get understandable messages into your head, but how? One is through reading, one is through listening. Well, reading is problematic with Chinese, right? Like, it's like, oh, read. Okay, great. Sounds great. Pinyin doesn't cut it because many characters and words have the same pinyin pronunciation. So it can't just be pinyin. It has to be the characters. All right. Well, how are you going to learn all those characters? And so that's what we tried to solve with Mandarin Blueprint with the Henzi movie method. Now, that's the thing we do on Mondays. So if you want to join the live stream on Monday, I'll show you how we learn characters. But if you learn characters, what you end up discovering is that Chinese words are very logical, and Chinese grammar is just a bunch of puzzle pieces. There's no declensions, there's just no word form changes, there's no gender. So it's not that there's zero grammar, because you can add characters, you can change the order to change the meaning of the sentence, but it's very basic grammar. It's very easy to kind of grasp. So the hard part of the language is learning the characters. And if you have a good method for learning the characters, and then you have a good order of learning the characters that unlock words, sentences, and all of that, that gets you to comprehensible input early. Getting to comprehensible input early means that you start getting the fertilizer of the mind, fertilizer of language acquisition. So you need a lot. You need a lot of comprehensible messages, but at least if you're doing it in a track that makes sense, you're never bored. So that's really key to this whole process. And what happens as you get more and more comprehensible input is then you're faced with a problem in Chinese and you go, oh, I'm going to, solve this in the moment, and the words are there. When I go to speak, the words are there. And that's the big difference. Cool. That dude says, I've been learning Chinese for 40 days, already passed HSK2, but I feel like now I'm not progressing. Right. I mean, that's what we were trying to solve with the blueprint, because we wanted to make it so that there was always something to do. So there's always another character you can learn. That character leads into a word. That word leads into a sentence. That sentence leads into a paragraph. That paragraph leads into a story. And so you're always kind of building on what you already know. So you never feel like you're not making progress. And what's nice about knowing that you're using an effective method for learning characters is that there's no doubt that learning characters is helping you, right? Because then you can open up more and more news articles, books, comic books, and whatever, and you'll understand more of it. So it makes a big difference. Okay. Too much information, right? I tried Link. I do like Link, but not as a beginner. But they don't really explain what to do, but great if you want to read Pinyin or listen to Chinese stories. So I really like Link, but the thing about Link is that you need to kind of already know some Chinese to be able to then use it effectively. And it doesn't, as far as I've seen, maybe they've improved, but like I've been using Link for years, like on the side, and it's very useful because it keeps track of your known words, and it's like, it keeps track of how much you're reading. So if you like the dopamine hit of like, I've now learned 50,000 words, then you can go, yeah, sweet. But when you're first starting off and you don't know anything, it's not that useful yet. It becomes useful later. And 4 hours a day. Look, any time that you spend that is getting you better at Chinese today is a good day. If you're better at Chinese today than you were yesterday, then that was a good day. Because the question, is 4 hours a day enough for Chinese? It kind of begs other questions like, well, how quickly do you want to reach fluency and literacy? What's your goal in terms of like, what day do you, what year, or what day, or what week or month do you want to be competent? And, because to some degree, it's a skill acquisition thing, and it's a long-term project. The time is going to pass anyway. So the only question is, do I have the identity of a Chinese learner? If I do, then I'll do the right things, and the time will pass, and I'll have been doing the things. Like, try not to let the length of the project convince you not to do it. Because if you really want to do it, like, you know, your alternatives are to either learn another skill, perfectly valid, or, you know, I don't know, like do things that aren't productive, which is fine. I mean, like, look, I like leisure from time to time, but I do think that if you set a goal for learning Chinese and the first thing to do is say, I'm a Chinese learner. What do Chinese learners do? They spend time with Chinese. And, you know, the only real enemy is zero. My training so far has been 2 hours of Super Chinese. That's an app. Okay, I haven't heard of Super Chinese. 1 hour of podcast, 1 hour of books, exercise, 1 hour of language exchange. I mean, that's a great set of things to do. I would say, yeah, I mean, like one thing, I don't know what the Super Chinese app does for you, but I can say that you got characters when you're not 3,000 characters yet, and you can understand 99.4% of the language by frequency in terms of the characters. Before you get to that point, I always feel that should be your that should be your North Star. That should be your compass. Learning new characters every day. Because once you get over that threshold, then you're able to get so much input every day. So that's a big one. Okay, 30 minutes practicing characters. For some reason, it's harder to memorize characters than 普通话. Yeah, so it's not if you use a good system like ours. So take the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge. If you're like that dude, hey, please take the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge. It's only $7. It will show you a way of learning characters that is much better than whatever you're doing that is unmemorable. Because if you can't remember it, then I know it's not as good as ours. Because everybody can remember when they do ours. So, all right. Yes, I do have plenty of ideas of how to learn characters, Angelique. And first of all, if you want to get right into it right now, like I say, mandarinbp.com/challenge-ls. That will let us know you came from the live stream. That is our character learning method put into a nutshell. But well, not a nutshell. It's a 15-day or 30-day challenge that like you're going to spend at least an hour a day on. But by the end of it, you will know exactly how to learn a Chinese character and remember it forever. And including the pronunciation and the tone and the character components, you'll be able to write it and you'll know what it means. So all the essential things that you need to do for that. But if you want to get a demonstration of that, Mondays will be the day that we do Henzi movie method demonstrations. And the Henzi movie method is our mnemonic technique for learning Chinese characters. The reason we call it the movie method is because you have you imagine in your mind's eye a little movie scene to remember a Chinese character. Remembering like flat 2D images on a page, like looking at this character and going, all right, let me try to remember the shape of that, is hard because human beings aren't that evolved for that particular skill, because writing as an invention is kind of brand new, but facial recognition is very old. Awareness of where you are in space is very old in terms of like human evolution. You've got object constancy, very old. And of course, we're very sensitive to actions. So if you can come up with a system to remember things that utilizes people, objects, places, actions, POPA, then you can learn a Chinese character much faster. That's exactly what we did. And we did it for 3,050 characters and built a whole system on top of that. I can go on for ages about this, so I'm going to leave it there. But Angelique, yes, we do have an idea about learning characters. The character behind me is Ren, and it is one of my favorite characters. It means, well, there's a few different ways that you can think of it. You could say to bear, you could say endure, you could say tolerance, right? And so the top component is a blade. And the bottom component is the heart. So you have a blade on your heart. And this is the nature of life. Like the Taoists would say, like, look, we all know that our existence is finite. And so there's the ever-present sort of existence of the blade on our heart, ready to pierce us at any moment. And so tolerance is the acceptance of that. And we can endure if we can accept that first. And then we can actually live. So that's my favorite Chinese character. All right. You won't miss my life again. I got it. You're live. All right. Best Chinese course. I love doing Mandarin Blueprint. I've stuck with it for a year now. Wow, well done. Good job. You have a lot of ni neng ren nai. Like, so you have a lot of patience and endurance. See here, 208 days for me. Well done. I found setting character goals works best for me. I use the character counts at the end of each level in Mandarin Blueprint and have written them down on the back of my Henzi practice notebook. Excellent. Nice. All right, guys. Well, I've caught up with the chat, so I'm going to show you guys a few things I was working on today, and I think that you guys will enjoy this. So this comes from the phrase vault, but I've done some additional work on it. Okay, so let me show you what this is about, and just for some context. Everything I was talking about earlier with the blueprint is our kind of flagship course. Sounds like some people in the chat here are in it, so you guys can share some of your experiences with it if you want. But essentially, that's a linear course that builds from character into word into sentence, and it's like it always stays where you know, and it builds bottom up. The phrase vault is a top-down course, so it focuses on a situation in Chinese. Like, so it's like, okay, I'm in the pharmacy and I need to talk to the pharmacist. What phrases should I learn? Now, if you just have top-down, you forget everything because it's too much random information. But if you just have bottom-up, it takes a while to be able to it takes a while to be able to like actually use anything, because if you build bottom up, then you have to learn characters, and learning an individual character, while incredibly useful, isn't actually like the act in itself isn't moving the needle. It's only seeing the character in the context of a sentence that you understand that moves the needle. So when you build bottom up, you have to build comprehension. That's absolutely essential, but the building of comprehension isn't actually Chinese that you can use in real life. So that's why top-down learning is important to have too. So like, okay, what do I say to people that I don't, to let them know that I'm not that good at Chinese yet, but please bear with me, that type of thing. Like, and so we wanted to mix both together. And so the phrase vault is a course that has situational Chinese, but it still does have characters, right? So we analyze the characters and we say, okay, sure, you can go right into this lesson and learn it because it's important to you, but you can also follow the blueprint. And when you pass a certain character in the blueprint, we'll tell you that you unlocked a lesson from the phrase vault. And then it's not top down, it's top down and bottom up, meeting in the holistic, wonderful matrix way. So let's talk about that by going into some phrases about daily routines. So one of the first things we all do every day is 起床, rise, 起, from the bed, 床, and 床. It's not surprising that you have the tree component in there because most beds have a wood frame, and certainly that is maybe not as much these days, although certainly some do, but you can see where that would come from. So 起床, that's to wake up, right? So that's that moment in the morning. Sorry, I gotta get my phone to stop texting me, but it's my mom, and my mom gets through my do not disturb. So, you know, aren't I a good son? So let's see here. So 起床, this is to wake up. Okay, so if you had a sentence like this, 我7点起床, I woke up at 7 o'clock. This could actually also be translated as I wake up at 7 o'clock. Chinese is very contextual, so it depends on, you know, if you're talking to somebody and it's daytime and they're asking you about today and you say, 我7点起床, then it would mean I woke up at 7 o'clock. But if you were talking to somebody about your habits and then you said, 我7点起床, then they would understand that means I wake up at 7 o'clock, generally speaking. Now, obviously, you can be more specific to make it clear that I'm talking about today, or you can be more specific to make it clear that you're talking about a habit. But I'm just pointing out that Chinese is a very contextual language. So sometimes people will ask us questions like, well, why couldn't it be this or couldn't it be that? And it's like, yes, it could, is usually the answer. I mean, sometimes it's like, no, it can't be that, you know, but often it's like, it could be either way. And this, by the way, this is why you have to move beyond sentences at some point. You have to get into a larger context, but, you know, one step at a time. So, 我7点起床 follows the structure, simple structure, Subject 我 time 7点 7 o'clock. 点 is how you say o'clock. And then 起床 action. So for example, you might say 他6点半. So he 6:30 去跑步 goes for a run. Go run. So 他6点半去跑步. So that just means, that's that same structure. The subject 他 time 6点半 action 去跑步, right? And how about this one? 我们 subject us we are us 8点 8吃早餐. So we have breakfast at 8 o'clock. 我们8点吃早餐. And some of you might be thinking, isn't it 早饭? Both are correct. 早餐 is a little bit slightly more formal, but what's interesting is that I've been on a lot of I've been around China in many places, and one of the things that you often do when you're playing my band's playing at a show and we stay at a hotel somewhere, and or I'm doing a performance or a hosting gig in some other city and we're staying at a hotel. If there is a breakfast that's provided, in that context, I'll almost always say 早餐, because it's a slightly more formal environment at a hotel. And then at home, you might say 早饭, but it's kind of interchangeable. So there you have a starting of your day. So you start your day with 起床, and you get up, you say, 我7点起床. Well, what about after that? Well, one of the things you might do soon after is 出门. So exit the door. Exit door. 出门. Well, that means, what do you guys think that means? That means to go out, to leave the house. And then you might even 出门上班. So what do you think 上班 means? To get on the job? Well, that's to go to work, right? And when you get to the office or the company, that's your 公司. 公司. So you wake up, 起床, you 出门, you go out the door, you 上班, go to work at the 公司, the company, right? Now, let's take a look at a phrase here. And I gotta move myself. I'll just move myself around this live stream. Why not? Okay. 我8点出门上班. 我9点前要到公司. Okay, so I leave for work at 8 o'clock. I need to reach the office before 9 o'clock. Now, 公司, again, another example of how Chinese is contextual. The translation of 公司 is like company, right? But if you say it like this, you can translate it as office. Even though there is a word for office, 办公室. 办公室 is the more official word for office. Like, I'm in my 办公室 right now, and because this is my office at my house. But again, Chinese is contextual. So if you're going to go to work and then 我9点前要到公司, yeah, so I have to get there before 9. You can translate as office and not company. I need to reach the office before 9 o'clock. So let's take a look at these two sentence structures here. So we have the first one, it's the same structure, right? Subject, time, action. 我8点出门. Now, sometimes you can do two verbs in a row, right? So you can go 我8点出门上班. So when you put two verbs in a row like that, it just means to do that. I leave for work at 8 o'clock. I leave 出门 for work. 上班, right? 出门上班. And then you go from there, you see, here's another example. 她7点出门买菜. So in her case, she's at 7 o'clock, leaves to buy groceries. 买菜. I always thought that was easy to remember because they rhyme. Buy vegetables or buy food. 买菜, right? And so, that's quite clear there. Here's another example. 他们9点出门去学校. They leave for school at 9 o'clock. So again, subject, in this case, 他们. That means they. So 他 is he or she or it. 他们 is they. Okay? So 9点, 7点, 8点. These are just the times of day. So if you know 1 through 10 in Chinese and you add dian, or 1 through 12 in Chinese, I should say, and you add dian, then that just means that o'clock, right? And 出门, to exit the door, that means leave your house. It's, again, Chinese characters are super logical, and the words that they create are super logical. And then, you have an action. Either it's 上班 or 买菜 or 去学校, right? And yeah, you could say, and by the way, you could say here 上课, which would just mean to go to class, but 去学校 is just another way of saying it. It's like I'm going to the school, right? So there's your basic subject, time, action. But let's look at this other half of the sentence. 我9点前要到公司. Okay, so this is similar, but instead it's a subject, time plus 前 and action. So this is a good structure for trying to tell somebody when you need to do something before. So 你10点前要到机场, right? So the 要到, that's a good way of saying need to arrive or will arrive. Kind of can be both. It's again, another contextual thing. We learn it as meaning will or want, but it depends. It's like when somebody's saying to you, 你10点前要到机场, they're saying you need to arrive at the airport before 10 o'clock, right? Because there's an implication you're going to fly away, so you better make it on time, right? So as is often the case, try not to think about the translations too much. It's just this is how you express it's before this time. So and you could say 后, by the way, to mean after that time, but for the sake of this example, let's just stick with 前. And then we have here, let me go back. 出门上班公司. And let's take a look at another one here. 我们12点前要到医院. 要到. Need to arrive. We need to reach the hospital or need to arrive at the hospital before 12 o'clock. And so this is a good way to sort of frame whatever it is you're going to do needs to be done by a certain time in terms of the arrival. Like you need to arrive at a certain time at the company or at the airport or at the hospital, right? So very useful stuff to consider these types of basic sentence structures. And by the way, you'll notice that when I put these sentence structures out there, I'm just kind of pointing out a general thing. I'm not going to ever do a specific grammatical explanation here because I don't really believe that is good to do. I don't think it's very helpful. I think the best thing you can do for recognizing sentence patterns is just see a pattern and then see, okay, could I make other sentences, could I read some other sentences that have that same idea and say, okay, well, I know that there are a few actions I could take that I've learned. 上班 is go to work. 买菜, that's another one. 上课 or 去学校. These are other things I know I could do. 做饭, any kind of action. And so you go subject, time, action. You can do time, subject, action, but these aren't hard and fast rules. It's more, these are things you can do, and so it's okay if you do them, right? It's more important to understand what you can do than what you can't. Don't waste time worrying about what's wrong, because there's infinite ways for things to be wrong, but there's a finite way for them to be right. So when you learn that something is correct, just be like, okay, cool, great, that works. Oh, that didn't work? Fine, whatever. I don't need to understand why it didn't work. Somebody didn't understand what I was saying. Okay, fine. No big deal. Okay, so let me just take a little break for a second and take a look what you guys are saying in the chat. Let me get the chat. I feel like I shouldn't be blocking. I'm not going to show the chat. I can see it myself, but I'm not going to show the chat because I don't want to be blocking out the slide in case you want to look at this stuff. So let me just put that down. Let me see here. Okay. Nice. I'm actually listening while on a break from level 19 in context. Nice, Paula. Titus, I'm starting with the language and recently started using the HSK. Are there any other good ways to use next to HSK? I don't even think the HSK is a good thing to use. The HSK is too formal. It's made by a bunch of Chinese academics, and it's not, like, look, they have good intentions, I suppose, but it's just that Chinese academics are always trying to fit things into the very strict kind of rules of like the way that the Chinese schooling system works is that people are very focused on regiment and doing things in a very specific way and always doing it that way. And, it's like repeat after me, rote learn, get this down. And that same kind of 18 years of struggle that kids go through, it naturally translates to the people who then go into academia. And so in my experience, the HSK is not the best like kind of gauge of whether or not you're actually good at Chinese. It's not nothing. I mean, like obviously if you can pass the HSK, you know something. It's just that a lot of it is too formal and it doesn't translate to like real life. It's like it translates to the test page. So yeah, I mean, I think the blueprint is better than the HSK because we built it from the beginning knowing that the HSK is not so good. So that's what I would say there. Chelsea asks, does the 30 days start right when you purchase the challenge? Curious because I'm in my second semester of Chinese for one more month, and I'm wondering if it will be helpful or too overwhelming adding it. Well, here's what I'll say, Chelsea. So, like, first of all, day one, you don't actually have to do anything except get set up. So day one is just like, you get your flashcard set up and you get on the course platform and just make sure that everything's working. And if you want, you can get a little bit ahead that day by starting. And then after that, you just do a little bit each day. And if you do the 30 days, like you would start there and you would get the emails, starting from the day you sign up. However, you do get an extra 15 days after it's over to, hold on to it because we recognize, sometimes life gets in the way. And even though you set out to do the challenge, sometimes you need a little bit more time. So there's a 15-day buffer. So, if you wanted to get started maybe 15 days before the end of your semester or get started now and just recognize that like you'll have some time to catch up after the semester is over. But I do think you could make a lot of progress. I mean, like it's meant to be able to fit into the cracks of your day. So, give it a shot. But also if you want to wait until you're finished with the semester, it'd be a good summer project, right? So it's all fine. Okay. I'm loving the progression of characters. Remembering characters becomes easier as Mandarin Blueprint progresses. Yeah, that's definitely the case. Yeah, the more you build up. Pleco is becoming invaluable in understanding some of the connectors in grammar. Yeah. Pleco is a nice thing to have as a tool in your toolbox. Is it first class? I'm not sure what you mean, Ken Deal. Yes, okay. Sometimes I think understanding why you're wrong further helps improve. I mean, I think that it's better to just know that you're wrong, not why you're wrong. You see what I mean? Like, if you know that it's wrong, then you know not to say that. And maybe then you go, what is right? Right? I'm just saying try to avoid why am I wrong? Like an analyzing a bad sentence. So you say something that doesn't make sense. The best thing to do is just find out what does make sense. You can still learn in that moment. It's just learn what's right. Don't learn why something is wrong, if that makes sense. Just know that was wrong. Okay, I won't keep saying that. This is right. Okay, I will say that. There's a temptation that a lot of people have to like analyze why something is wrong, and there's just no need, is my point. An extra 3 hours per day on top of the time I need to spend studying the course material and doing homework. 多谢. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, like, it's only 3 hours today. Hey, Gavi's here. It's only an extra 3 hours per day if you do the 15-day challenge. If you do the 30-day challenge, it's only about an hour a day. Thanks. And so Gavi is here. Gavi has been a long time Mandarin Blueprint member. She rules, and she's been doing all sorts of great stuff. So she says, still here, still learning. Great that you were doing these live stream things, and great to hear from you again. I'm happy to be here. I was thinking more on the lines of knowing why you're wrong so you don't make other similar mistakes, but I see what you mean. Yeah. I am new here and I just joined 10 minutes ago. Yeah, it's not the first class can deal. I've been doing these live streams now for, I think it's like the 8th or 9th one I've done. And I'm going to be doing these regularly now. By the way, if you're just joining, my plan is to do these on weekdays, Monday through Friday, from at US Central 1 p.m. I'm in Austin, Texas, and so I'm going to be doing it at that time. It's a time that works for the US and Europe. It doesn't work for people who are in Asia or Australia, unfortunately. It's very difficult to get a time that works for everybody. I could do very early my morning, but then it doesn't work for people who are not up very early in the US. So it's like there's really no time that works perfectly for everyone. There are the replays on our channel, and I also need to pick a time that works for me and my schedule with Mandarin Blueprint work. So Monday will be Henze movie method demonstrations. Tuesday will be demonstrations of how logical Chinese words are by learning character by character. Wednesday will be a weekly onboarding for any of the new members of Mandarin Blueprint or a member of Mandarin Blueprint who is entering a new stage. So, that way we can have a touch point with people every week. So that's kind of more for members of the course, but if you're not a member, you can still come and see what it would be like if you were a member. And then Thursday will be beginner Chinese phrases from the Kickstarter. And then Friday, today, will be situational Chinese, some analysis of some words, some analysis of some sentence structure from our upcoming course, the Phrase Vault. All right. Gavia, I'm so glad that you're still... Gavia is awesome. She's been doing Mandarin Blueprint for years now and just keeps getting better every day, a little bit better every day, and learning new characters, doing language exchanges. She sent us lots of updates via email, and just very impressive dedication, some heartfelt dedication there from Gavia. So I'm glad to see you here. All right, I'm going to get back to the presentation and go into the next section. So what have we done so far? Well, we've woken up, right? We've 起床. We have 出门上班. So we've left to go to work. And then we have arrived at the 公司, the office, the company. Well, what might happen next? Well, you're going to hit your midday lunch break, right? You're going to eat some 午饭, right? And so, this is, something you might do there. And then also, you might have a 会议 in the afternoon, after lunch. Now, I put yi in brackets there because you don't always have to say it if you want to say a meeting. So we have 午饭, eat, or lunch. That's not eat lunch. 吃午饭 would be eat lunch. And then 会议 is a meeting of some kind. So let's take a look at this phrase. And I got to move myself again. 我在路边吃了午饭。我下午有个会. Right? So this 会 here is short for 会议, because 会 in this context just means a gathering of some kind. So 我下午有个会。我在路边吃了午饭。我下午有个会. Right? So now we've gone from waking up to going to work to arriving at the company to eating lunch by the road because in the afternoon you have a meeting. So we're going through our day here, our daily routine. And let's take a look at these two sentence structures here. So we have sentence one structure, subject, location, action. So subject, 我, location, 在路边. 路边, this is just roadside, so near the road, located at the roadside. 在 is just a general preposition you can use to mean at. And this is why I like Chinese better than English sometimes, because it's just this is just the location character. 在. Once you get it, it's that's it. And by the way, it's also your location in time. So, space-time is one thing. So 在 can mean your location, space, or time. So I could say 我在我的办公室. I am in my office. I could also say 我在直播. That means I am live streaming. I am located in time by live streaming. I am located in space in my office. So, 我在办公室直播. 我在办公室直播. I am in my office live streaming. And that's what's so cool. 在 is just such a useful character in that sense. So, 我在路边吃了午饭. I had lunch by the roadside. So you can imagine maybe saying this to a colleague because they're like, where did you eat? And you're like, I had lunch by the roadside. 我下午有个会. I'll get back to that in a second. So the basic sentence structure here is subject plus location plus action. Okay. And let's take a look at some other ones. 他在餐厅吃了晚饭. So she located 餐厅. So this is the like the meal room, but 厅 is kind of like a more like a banquet room. So, but it's just a restaurant. 餐厅 is just a restaurant, but like 厅 has got a more of a feeling of like a nicer room. It's not just like a 室, like my 办公室 is my office room, the room where I deal with the company stuff, right? So the deal with company room, 办公室. And in the case of a 厅, it's usually like it's a banquet hall. It's a nice, like a restaurant wants to call itself a 餐厅 because both of those characters are more like slightly more formal. It's a little bit more elegant to be in a 餐厅. Now, but you can also have a 饭馆. 饭馆. That's usually like a restaurant, but it's got more of like a 馆. It's kind of it's just chiller. It's like like one of those shops that is just along a strip and there's a few cheap tables and a few cheap stools and they just bring out several dishes to you, and those places often have the best food. That place you definitely call a 饭馆. But if you had somewhere that's a little bit nicer, they'll call it a 餐厅. And so she at the 餐厅吃了晚饭. So she had dinner at the restaurant. How about 他们在家里吃了早餐? So they, I'm covering up. My bad. I'll go here. They at the house ate breakfast. So and here you also have, you have 午饭. That's one of the ways you can say it. You can also say 午餐. It's interesting. It's like funny, these things that happen when you study Chinese for a while. I do notice that people say 早餐 more than they say 晚餐 and 午餐. Not exactly sure why. It's just sort of how it's developed. You can say all six of them. You can say 午饭, or you can say 早饭, 午饭, 晚饭, meaning breakfast, lunch, dinner. You can say 早餐, 午餐, and 晚餐. All of it's okay, but I noticed in frequency, people say 早餐 the most for some reason compared to the other two. So yeah, anyway, so that's one of the structures. The second structure is back to that same subject, time, action. 我下午有个会. 有 just means have. So I have a meeting. 我下午有个会. 他晚上有个活动. He has an event in the evening. Has event. When? 晚上. Who? 他晚上有个活动. Right? Oh, by the way, this sentence structure incongruence between languages, the fact that in many languages the verb comes at the end of the sentence or comes late, it's one of the reasons why until a translation app can just directly read your brain, right? And read like the raw thought before you express the language, it will never be as good as knowing the language. Because imagine that it has to hear the whole thing first before it can, like the translation machine has to hear the whole thing first before it can know where you were going with it. You could be like, I, at the bakery with my daughter, murdered. Like, it's like you have to wait until the last moment to really know what the meaning of the sentence was, right? So that means that a translation app of any kind or some kind of machine that translates always has to wait for the sentence to finish. And anybody who knows the language is already on top of it, right? Like they already know where it's going. So it's just worth knowing that no matter how good these things get, until it's picking up on the raw thought, and I don't even know that neuroscientists understand how to find that, it's not going to be an issue. Or I should say, it's going to be better to know the other language. Okay, so here's another example. 我们早上有个约会. So we have another 会 here. This is a appointed meeting. So like 约 is like to make an appointment. So 约会 is an appointment. Now, because this one is happening in the morning, 早上, I would guess that this for sure is an appointment. But just like how in English we say, oh yeah, what's the date of our appointment, right? You say that there's a date that we'll meet, right? And you could say that about somebody that what's the date I'll meet with you, business associate, right? But just like in English, 约会 also can have the connotation of a romantic date. And so if the sentence was 我们晚上在餐厅有个约会, that might mean date in that instance. That might mean like, hey, we're going on a date. And so we have an appointment in the morning. So subject, time, action, and of course, sometimes it's just subject, time, action, and there's no object. Sometimes it's subject, time, action, and there's an object, but it's still the same basic structure there. Okay. Now, of course, after your 下午会议, which is just 有个会, you're going to 下班, right? And so 下班 just means to get off work, right? So we learned 上班 and 下班. So 班 is any kind of like a group that is together and like categorized together. Like for example, in classrooms, all of the class, like your classmates that are in your class are your ban. So I was in, my last semester at Sichuan University, I was in the 高级4班, so the advanced 4 class. And at work, your colleagues together are your ban. So if you 上班, that means you get on the work, and 下班 is get off the work, right? So it's the kind of 下 means like down or under or below, and it kind of, when it's a verb, it means to get off, and then in 上 as a verb in this case means to get started or get on, and it applies just as much to class as it does to work. 上课 is to go to class, and 下课 is to get out of class. Every class ended with the teacher saying 下课了, right? Then you have another one here, 回家. So after you 下班, you're going to 回家. And so let's take a look at this phrase. Oh, grab the wrong one. There we go. 我5点就下班了. 我下班后走路回家. So I, 5 o'clock. We'll talk about 就 in a second, but 下班了, right? That means I finish work at 5 o'clock. 我下班后走路回家, right? So after 后, so we talked earlier about 前. This is now 后. 我下班后 after work 走路回家, walk, road, return, home. So again, Chinese characters, if you know the characters, it's fairly straightforward. It's like, I off work after. I off work after. Walk, road, return home. It's like, it's a very caveman-like language. I off work after. Walk, road, return home. Right? You just imagine and by the way, I'm not denigrating the language for that. It's simple. It's simple. It's great in that sense. So let's look at a couple of other examples here. So to get a sense of this. So in this case, we're doing the subject plus time plus 就 plus action. And if you add the l as well, it gives the impression of like going to happen, about to happen, right? And it also can kind of give the impression of being a bit more exact, right? So 就 is one of those characters that you hear all the time. Everybody's always saying it. You just hear everybody saying 就. And it can be, as a beginner especially, very intimidating. But this is where comprehensible input really comes in, because you're never going to study all the perfect ways to use 就 in a sentence. But if you just listen a lot and you hear people saying it a lot, eventually you go to speak and you go, oh, I said it right. Now, I do think it's worth noting the 就什么什么了 construction, because that is usually an indication of a future, that something is going to happen. So 她6点就离开了. She leaves at 6 o'clock, right? And, you know, I when you say 她6点就离开了, that has a feeling like maybe it's somewhat soon. And it also has the feeling of like, it's not 6:15. It's not 5:45. She's probably not going to stick around, you know. And 5点就下班了. Like, it's at 5. You know, that's when it happens. That's when people get off work. So it's 就 has a little bit of a sense of precision to it. And so if you don't have it, you can, if 就 is not in the sentence, you can probably assume that it's a little bit looser. Okay, I'm keep moving myself around. 他们4点就结束了. They finish at 4 o'clock. So 结束, tie up and conclude. 结束, right? So they 4 o'clock on pretty much precisely tie up and conclude. Look, and look in this case. By the way, this is why you can't say that look is past tense. It just means a change, right? So in this case, at 4 is when the conclusion will be done. Like, it's like, that's when the change will happen. It's currently not concluded, but at 4, 就结束了, right? So that's when you would get the certainty that it is over. So there's your kind of sentence structure. I hope that gives you a little bit of a sense of how to use 就 look and put the action in between. So it's like 我5点就下班了, 他6点就离开了, 他们4点就结束了, right? So it's got like all of that is just clarity on when something is going to happen. And again, like I told you before, this is a bit of an implication of a bit more precision there. Okay, I can cover up 下班 here for a second. So let's look at the second sentence structure here, which is just the subject event action. So 我下班后. So 下班 is the event, and 下班后 is then going to lead to the action, which is 走路回家. And I could just say 我下班后回家. That's fine. But if I want to be more specific and just say it is specifically walking home, 走路回家. A lot of times with Chinese, you just add a word to be more specific. It's not like it's all that complicated. It's like a lot of times you can make a sentence even simpler. You know, for example, the first sentence, 我下班, 我下班了, or just 我下班, that's fine too. But by adding more, I'm just being more specific. Most Chinese sentences, what you want to look for, especially when you're learning, and for those of you who are in the Mandarin Blueprint method and you're going through some sentences, if you're ever struggling to figure out a sentence and understand what it means, a good thing to do is to try to find the basic sentence, right? So the second sentence here is really just 我回家. I went home. I returned home, I went home. That's the basic sentence, okay? How did you go home? 我走路回家. When did you go home? 我下班后走路回家. Right? So you just add in more stuff and then you end up, you know, just being more specific. But whenever you're reading, try to see if you can find the basic sentence there underneath everything. Okay. Nice. Let's look at one more example here. Or two more, sorry. 他放学后去打篮球。他放学后去打篮球。All right, so he, event, 放学, which is to get out of school. That's like, get out of class is 下课, but 放学 is like the school lets out. Like it's the day is over in school. So 他放学后去打篮球. So 打 is often the verb used for many sports. Lots of sports have 打 as the basic verb. And it just, is some kind of 打. It just kind of means to hit. So it just ended up being this threshold, or sorry, not threshold. It just became this like catch-all term for many different sports. Now, you would say 踢足球 for football, soccer, because in that case, you're not actually hitting anything. So they say 踢 for kick. But in many cases, if you're playing a sport with a ball, they often say 打. So 篮球, literally basketball. It's a direct translation. This is basket, 篮, and then 球. And so 放学后, that's just he. The event is getting out of school, and 后 is after. So he went to go play basketball. Here's another one. 我们吃晚饭。我们吃晚饭. So 吃饭 means to eat. So 吃晚 means to finish eating. 晚 is just the general word for finished as a complement, right? So when you see a verb like 吃, and then you see 晚, that just means that it is finished. The verb is finished. It's a result. It's like there's a lot of resultative complements in Chinese where you have a verb and then the thing that comes after it is the result. And when you have a word like 吃饭, where 吃 is a verb and 饭 is a noun, it's like 饭 is just rice or a meal. Usually it's a meal. And so you say 吃饭. You can put anything in between it because you've got a verb and a noun. So it's a verb being applied to an object. So you can go ahead and add any description to that object you want, or add any result you want to that verb. So I could say 我们吃我妈妈做的饭, right? So we eat my mother's cooked food, as an example. Or 我们吃完我妈妈做的饭, right? That would just mean we finished eating my mother's cooked food. You can put all sorts of stuff in between to describe the noun and also to show the result of the verb. And I'm not saying that so that you can try to think about it to say it. I'm always pointing out these things with the intention of helping you notice them when you are reading Chinese. Comprehensible input must come first, right? Okay, so let's finish the sentence. 我们吃晚饭后去散步. We go for a walk after eating. And 散步, that is literally like 散 is like to spread out. So you spread out your steps. 步 is like any step. So 散步 is to spread out your steps, just to go take a walk. I love that. That's cute. And so this sentence here also is it's very indicative of Chinese culture. They have this old phrase, which is 饭后百步走，活到99. And it means if you take 100 steps after eating, you'll live to 99. And it turns out there was a bunch of science that came out about this recently. They're right. It's very good to take a little walk after you eat a meal. It just helps lower your blood sugar and start the digestion process. And it's yeah, what a shocker. The Chinese have been onto this for, a very, very long time. So that's a very common thing to do there. And so today we've gone over, a day, some things that you do in your daily routine. So you wake up, 起床. In fact, let me just go ahead and let me just go back to the beginning here and just go through it. So you 起床, you wake up, and maybe you wake up at 7, and then you 出门上班, and you go to the 公司. So that's the go to work and to the company or to the office. And you eat 午饭 at your lunch break. And then afterwards, you might have a 会议 or just a 会. And you figured out the idea of subject plus location plus action and subject plus time plus action. There was a lot of subject plus time plus action today. And then you have 下班 and 回家. So you wake up, leave to go to work at the office, you eat lunch, you have a meeting, and then you get off work and go home, right? So there's other things obviously we can talk about, and there's plenty more in the phrase vault covering daily routines. But I thought I would give you a sense of the type of content you can expect to see in the phrase vault, and also how advantageous it is to know characters, because all of this stuff is straightforward if you know characters. It's tricky if you don't, right? So if you are looking at this and you're trying to make heads or tails of these sentence structures, but all of the characters to you look like, hieroglyphs and you don't understand it, and it's just a bunch of question marks in your mind, it makes it really tough. But I'm telling you, like, once you learn the characters and you see these patterns, like my brain, I'm a very kind of like, I'm analytical. I like spreadsheets. I have a creative side too, but like, it's like I really get into Chinese characters because I'm like, these are so logical and they follow such an interesting pattern of, kind of meaning construction. It's like the way they construct meaning is so visual and it's so consistent because the language doesn't have like 6 root languages like English does. So it's fascinating language to check out there. So I'm going to check out what you guys are saying in the chat. Cool. Let's see. Thank you for this lesson. I still need to do day 7 of the challenge, so I'll see you in the next live stream. See you later, Major Bridger. Do you need to have the blueprint to get the blueprint challenge? Nope. The Mandarin Blueprint Challenge gives you access to phases 1 through 3 of the blueprint. And if you go to the page, mandarinbb.com/challengeLS, all the details are there. And it's linked in the description below. So like you can just click that link. But the challenge itself, it gives you access to phases 1 through 3 of the blueprint. So you'll get a sense of how it all works. And then you maintain access for the time of the challenge plus 15 days. And, if you decide to upgrade at some point, then you get lifetime access to what you upgraded to. If I buy Mandarin Blueprint for 30 days, do I lose access if I don't pay right away? Like, do I lose access to the lessons I've done? Let's see here. Well, I just want to make sure that what you're saying about that dude is you're saying if you buy the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge, or if you're saying you buy the Blueprint. If you buy the Blueprint, which is our like flagship course, and that's the whole curriculum, you get lifetime access to that. We have a 90-day refund guarantee, but you get lifetime access to that. But the challenge is you get access to the length of the challenge plus 15 days. And if you don't upgrade at all, then you lose access after that. But if you do upgrade, so like basically give you a little inside baseball here. First, if you take the challenge, we will offer you the blueprint and we'll give you a little discount for taking the challenge. If you don't go over the challenge, we'll offer you Fluency Foundations, which is phases 1 through 5. And so that gets you started. That's levels 1 through 36. And if you don't want to take that, then we offer also just to keep the challenge, keep phases 1 through 3. And so, the $7 for the challenge is essentially for the challenge plus 15 days. And if you want to keep the challenge, then you can, I think we charge $37 for that to keep that material and have lifetime access to it. So yeah, that's how that works. Zai it's for ongoing action. Also, how do you maintain your Chinese? Living in Texas, where I'm assuming the main language is probably English, what are your recommendations to keep Chinese part of you? Just keep listening. Just keep listening. Keep reading. I read Chinese every day. I listen to Chinese every day. And admittedly, my speaking sometimes, it's weird because on the one hand, I know more Chinese now than I ever have because I never stopped inputting it every day. So if you're inputting it every day, you only get better there. But I don't necessarily speak it every day living in Texas. So I'll sometimes be a little bit choppy with my speaking, but it's often like revving up an engine. It's like as soon as I start getting into it, then I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine. So maybe a couple of years ago when I lived in China, my speaking was a little bit more fluent. But the thing about it is that like fluency is such a weird word because like if I was sitting down with a Chinese person, we would have a long conversation and it would be fine. So I'm fluent, right? But I'm also probably a little bit less fluent than I was a couple of years ago, but because of all the passive immersion I've been doing, or like active and passive immersion I've been doing for the past 2 years, it would take me not very long to get more fluent than I was 2 years ago. See what I mean? So it's like fluency is kind of like love. It's like you don't exactly know how to define it, but you know when you define it. Good Lord. My whole family just insists on messaging me constantly, and it's not anything urgent. Okay. So what I was saying was just that I'll be honest, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys. All right. So yes, you can totally restart, Abner. Just so somebody asked about. Oh yeah, so I was talking about fluency. I said fluency is like love. You don't exactly know how to define it, but you know when you're in it, right? So that's kind of what I was going to say there, right? So then Abner asks, I started the challenge, but I stopped the second day because of work and family issues. Can I restart? I've missed 6. Yeah, so Abner, just send an email to contact@mandarinblueprint.com. Our member service team will help you with this. Just tell them that you were watching one of Phil's live streams and I said it was okay. No, that'll be totally fine. And we can restart you there. All right. Thanks for explaining jiu. I've been finding it confusing. Yeah, my biggest advice with jiu is just don't worry about it. Like, because you will hear it so much. I mean, like every now and then it's like, okay, say jiu 什么什么了 means like going to happen. And sometimes jiu means like very precise. And sometimes jiu means earlier than expected. And that all sounds complicated. And it's like, it's just unnecessary to know. It's like, most of the time, 就 is not necessary, but it adds a little bit of a tone to the sentence that is, like, it's very rare that 就 without it, the sentence is wrong. Sometimes. So, again, this is why I don't want to give you a hard and fast rule. My generalized rule with 就 is just like, keep listening. Because the more you listen, the more you'll be like, okay, yeah, I got a feel for when it's supposed to be. Do you have any recommendations for HSK 2 to 3 Chinese language media? Yeah, okay, so you were asking about the challenge. Yeah. Right, so I explained it. So yeah, you if you don't upgrade to anything after the challenge, then you'll lose access 15 days after the challenge is over. But we do give you a chance to at least upgrade to keep what you have at very minimum, and then you can also upgrade to Fluency Foundations, which is phases 1 through 5, or you can upgrade to the Blueprint, which is the whole curriculum. And yeah. Okay. HSK 2 to 3 Chinese language media. I mean, there are comprehensible input YouTube channels out there. As you... Oh, I just gave a thumbs up. Did I do that? That was amazing. That was weird. If there are these comprehensible input YouTube channels that are just designed to have leveled Chinese content. And of course, I'm a big fan of Mandarin Companion. We do, because those are books, graded books. And so you can leave them lying around your house. And we, of course, have graded content in our curriculum that isn't specifically HSK 2 or 3 based, but it's based on a better system than the HSK. So, it's based on a system where we can be absolutely sure what you know, so we can be sure that it's comprehensible. So that's kind of what I'd say there. As for the HSK 2 and 3 and all of that and finding stuff around it, there's people who are following the HSK out there. And so I would just recommend, going to some various maybe Chinese forums and finding if some people have some stuff, or doing a YouTube search for like HSK2 comprehensible input. If you search for HSK2 comprehensible input, I bet you would find some stuff there. Great course, love it. Thank you, Baoluo. 对了, since you said I could wait 2 weeks to sign up closer to the end of the semester, May I ask how long this $7 challenge is running so I could possibly even wait until the end of the semester in 6 weeks? Yeah, totally. It will still be there. The Mandarin Blueprint Challenge isn't like something that is a cohort. It's not cohort based. It's evergreen. So like you can join at any time. So join when you're ready. How do you say, good Lord, 我的天哪? There's some different ways you can say all that stuff. Wow, thank you so much. Well, glad to hear that, Jake B. All right, y'all. Well, I enjoyed this immensely today. As a reminder again, Mandarin Blueprint has a whole suite of courses. You can always go to mandarinblueprint.com, see what we have to offer. But the best way to understand whether or not the Mandarin Blueprint method will work for you is to go to mandarinblueprint.com. I should say mandarinbp.com/challengeLS to take the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge. If you click that link that's in the description or type in that URL that's on screen right now, that tells us that you came from the live stream, which is very helpful because it makes me know I should keep doing these live streams. I like them anyway because there's a lot of reasons to do them, but do appreciate that if you guys can. And I don't know, are you guys subscribed to our YouTube channel? You're supposed to ask for that, right? And maybe you can like this video, like it, give it a like. And I think that I never think to ask about that because again, we're not a YouTube channel first. We're a product. We built a curriculum first, and then we're like, how should we tell people about this? And so we made a YouTube channel. So I forget sometimes. But so yeah, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, as a reminder, I am planning on doing these live streams Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. U.S. Central, 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern. And Monday will be Henza movie method demonstration. Tuesday will be a learning Chinese words character by character. So taking one character and showing all the different words you can make with it. And then on Wednesday will be member onboarding. So regardless of where you are in the Mandarin Blueprint method, you will find that live stream useful because it'll help you either get started on the course or get unstuck if you're stuck in any place. It also is great for us to get feedback about where we can improve the course. And then on Thursday, it will be beginner Chinese phrases. And then on Friday, it will be like this one today was. It will be focused on phrases in a situation in Chinese. Today was daily routines. Next week, it'll be something else. So we'll see how that goes. Thanks, boss man. You're awesome. Thanks, BLT. I really enjoy your videos. Glad to hear that, Jake. And Winslam I get 3 thumbs up. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to finish it here.